What's up? Fans, this is Dave Wave with another episode. On today's episode of TBFN, we're going to talk about the tight end position, specifically Mike Gesicki. And I've been watching on social media, there's been a lot of posts and there's been a lot of comments from fans saying that we should move on from Mike Gesicki because they don't think that he fits in Mike McDaniel's offense. I just think that Mike is not using him correctly. And that's just my opinion. I'm not a head coach. He's a head coach. He obviously has forgotten more football than I have ever remembered. And he knows a lot more than me. But this is just, me as a fan watching our offense this year, watching how Mike Gesicki was used this year versus the last 2 years. And also thinking back to other West Coast offenses that had tight ends with his build, and I came up to the conclusion that Mike is just not using Gesicki the correct way. And you look at Mike Gesicki and his build. He's 6'6", 247 pounds. We drafted him in 2018. He's been durable and reliable ever since he's been a Dolphin. I mean, he's only missed 1 or 2 games. And when he was in Gase's offense, Gase didn't really use him correctly also. He only had 32 targets, 22 recs, 202 yards, 9.2 yards per reception, no touchdowns, and he had 9 first downs. So in Gase's offense, in his type of system, he wasn't able to utilize Gesicki in a way that took advantage of his strengths. 2019, in O'Shea's system, when Flores was hired as the head coach, he had 89 targets, 51 recs, 570 yards, 11.2 yards per rec, 5 touchdowns, 25 first downs. Like I said in a previous video, Gesicki's best years as a Dolphin has been under Brian Flores, and obviously Ryan Fitzpatrick has something to do with that, and the Patriots system has something to do with that because Gronkowski had productive years in this same system. 2020 under Gailey's system, he had 85 targets, 53 recs, 703 yards, 13.3 yards per rec, 6 touchdowns, 36 first downs. So again, with Ryan Fitzpatrick and with Tua also throwing him the rock, he produced, and his yards increased every single year. The year before last, 2021, under Gesicki and Stoogsville, his targets went up. He had 112 targets, 7 recs, 780 yards. His yards per rec went down. It went to 10.7, but that was still productive. And his touchdowns went from 6 to 2 with 39 first downs. His first downs went up. He had the most first downs in his career in 2021 in the 2OC system. So he's shown that in multiple different systems, he can be productive. He can still produce. So there's no reason why he can't produce in McDaniel's system. This year's production dropped to 362 yards. He did have 5 touchdowns though, but I mean, let's be honest, those are Durham Smythe numbers, So, for him to get the franchise tag and for him to get an extension, I know fans are saying, well, the numbers don't show that he's worth the money. But I believe if Gesicki's used correctly, he can be definitely worth the money. I mean, when you think of Durham Smythe, I think he is the tight end that we need to replace. He's the one that's not adding enough value. I mean, he is a good blocker in the run game. He has been productive there, but in the vertical passing game, Durham Smythe is not a threat. No one's really, the defense ain't really worried about him. And I think we need to have defenses worried a little bit more. And so I would have a 4 tight end room, 2 exceptional blockers in the run game who can check and release and get open and got good route running ability in the open field for patterns. And then I would get 2 vertical threats. Mike Gesicki is a vertical threat. And the vertical threats, you just want them to be, if they're exceptional blockers, that's perfect. But those are generational type tight ends like Tony Gonzalez, Gates. They don't grow on trees. You're not going to find them every day. You just got to find the best tight end you can and coach him up to be better in the areas that he's weak in, to strengthen his weaknesses. That's what we got to do with Mike Gesicki in this offense. You know, maybe we need to use, I don't know why we don't run no tight end screens, no shovel passes to him like how Andy Reid does with the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't understand that. But those are plays that maybe we can incorporate in Mike McDaniel's system. And like I said, Gesicki, his numbers dropped significantly. He had a pretty good year last year, but his numbers dropped to only 129 yards and 1 touchdown. That's pedestrian numbers. I mean, I think Mike Gesicki, I know Durham Smythe is your dog, that's your partner in crime, but I'm sorry, dog, he got to get cut, and you need another tight end that can complement you better than Durham Smythe. Someone else that could be a threat. You know, you think of Shula. Shula had Dan Johnson, he had Hardy, and he had Joe Rose. You know, he had a combination of tight ends that he used. Farrell Edmonds, but then he also had Greg Beatty. You know, Greg Beatty did some of the blocking, and he got open on check and release patterns so that Marino could find him when the deep threats wasn't open. So, you know, but someone who could also break tackles and get yards after catch. Durham Smythe get tackled and that's it. You're not going to get no more yards after that. At least Gesicki tries to break tackles and, you know, get away from defenders. But like I said, I would either sign Gesicki to a franchise tag or extend him and find another soldier that could feed off of his ability and complement him with speed. And you know, and we could alternate the 2 tight ends with fullback John Lovett, who got hurt. But I showed y'all his tape from Princeton in that Wildcat, and how he's a multi-dimensional threat. He could be another Jim Jensen type of player that we could use to give defenses headaches while they're trying to cover Tyreek and Waddle. And we should also see what Hunter Long could bring to the table, since both Gesicki and Durham's numbers have slipped. I'm gonna blame that on the play calling. That's on Coach Mike. He got to figure it out. But let's take a look at George Kittle's numbers. I mean, George Kittle is 6'4", 250 pounds. I told y'all Gesicki is 6'6", 247 pounds. So Gesicki he has a larger frame than Kittle. Kittle's a 3-time Pro Bowler in that West Coast scheme. So you got to think, Kittle's in basically the same scheme that Mike McDaniel's running. Obviously, Kyle Shanahan is way more advanced in his schemes. Mike McDaniel got to get there, but it's basically the same type of offense. In 2017, he had 63 targets, 43 recs, 515 yards, 12 yards per rec, 2 touchdowns, 24 first downs. 2018, he had 136 targets, 88 recs, 1,377 yards. Those numbers right there are better than a lot of receivers. 15.6 yards per rec, 5 touchdowns, 60 first downs. 2019, he had 107 targets, 85 recs, 1,053 yards, 12.4 yards per rec, 5 touchdowns, 53 first downs. And then 2020, he has 63 targets, 48 recs, 634 yards, 13.2 yards per rec, 2 touchdowns, 32 first downs. 2021, he had 94 targets, 71 recs, 910 yards, 12.8 yards per rec, 6 touchdowns, 42 first downs. And, you know, so I think in that scheme, I mean, he ain't that much bigger than Gesicki, and he's producing in Kyle Shanahan's West Coast scheme. I think, he's a better blocker than Gesicki, but I still think Gesicki can produce. Another tight end I want y'all to keep in mind that is basically the same build as Gesicki, who used to be a Dolphins tight end And Shula was able to use him and be productive with him, with Marino in a high-scoring offense, and that was Farrell Edmonds. Farrell was basically the same build as Gesicki, 6'6", 254 pounds, and he was a two-time Pro Bowler with us. His rookie year was his best year. He had 33 recs for 575 yards, 17.4 yards per rec. So Marino was going deep down the field to Farrell. 3 touchdowns. We didn't have a good year. I think we had injuries. We went 6-10 that year, and that was Shula's worst season as a Dolphins head coach. So I will say that. But Farrell was still productive, and Marino threw for over 4,000 yards that year, 28 touchdowns. But Marino also threw 23 interceptions. So that 6-10 record had a lot to do with Marino throwing a lot of picks. Same thing at 89. We went 8-8. Third in the division because Marino threw too many interceptions. 1990 season, we went 12-4. He had 446 yards. Could have went to the Super Bowl, but we lost to the Bills 34-44 in that slugfest. Marino threw for 3,563 yards in 1990, 21 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. So Marino's touchdowns went down because Shula realized, I can't have this man just slinging the football down the field every single year. We're not going to win that way. We got to incorporate the run game. And that's what they did. Sammy Smith had 831 yards on the ground, 8 touchdowns, and Duper was the more productive Mark brother this year with 810 yards to Clayton's 406 yards. And you see Duper and Clayton's numbers went down also. That's because Farrell Edmonds, he was getting numbers. And they went 12-4. So that 1990 season is an example of how you can be productive and still have a 12-win season with a tight end like Gesicki. So it's been done before. Shula's done it. I could always reference Shula with anything. It really don't matter because he's been in every single situation. And I could always show you how the Dolphins can just follow his guide, follow his playbook. Watch the film like how I'm doing, and it can work. And you hear about Shula's 3-headed running back monster, but he also had 3-headed tight end monsters, like I told y'all before. Another tight end that comes to mind that was in a West Coast system with a left-handed quarterback was tight end Brent Jones from the 49ers back in the 90s. 6'4", he was 230 pounds. He was lighter than Mike Gesicki. Still produced, got drafted at 87, but didn't start till 89. From 89 to 96, he averaged over 500 yards a season. His most productive years was 92 and 93 because he was at the 700 plus yardage mark. But to me, 1994 was his best year. He had 72 targets, 49 recs, 670 yards, 13.7 yards per rec, 9 touchdowns, and 29 first downs. Then you look at another tight end that's the same build as Mike Gesicki. Kyle Pitts, 6'6", 246 pounds. Another vertical threat who can be a big, heavy wide receiver that you can line up in the slot. That's what the Falcons did. Kyle Pitts had 110 targets in 2021, 68 recs, 1,026 yards, but only 1 touchdown that year. So, like I said, we just got to look for other weapons that can help, other tight ends that could be another tight end that could be a vertical threat. And if we're going to keep Durham, maybe get another tight end that could be an excellent blocker. But I just think we could just find 2 tight ends that could do the same thing. And there's one that I got in mind right now that I'm gonna tell y'all about. So here's my list of 5 tight ends that will pair better and provide more for the offense than Durham Smythe, and that can help out Gesicki. Number 1 on that list for me that I'm gonna really talk a lot about is Tommy Tremble, and he plays for the Panthers. I had him on my draft board. And when I look at the Panthers' needs heading into the 2023 season, they need a quarterback, they need an offensive guard, they need a linebacker, they need a cornerback, and they need a wide receiver. So I think we could package a trade maybe that sends them cornerback Byron Jones, maybe linebacker Elandon Roberts and wide receiver Cedric Wilson in exchange for Deontay Foreman, the running back, and he'll be the power running back that we can use to be a part of that three-headed monster with most of the Jeff Wilson, and then tight end Tommy Tremble, and then a 5th-round pick from the Panthers. I think that'd be a good deal. We don't really need Cedric Wilson. We already got Sherfield, and I think there's other wide receivers that'd be a better fit for our offense that could provide more variety to our offense than Cedric. Elandon, he's good, and he played a hell of a season this year, but we got Tyndall. I think we need to draft another middle linebacker to pair with Tyndall, and then we'll have Tyndall, a new linebacker with the same rangy speed with Van Ginkel and Baker. But you look at Tremble, he did a little bit of everything at Notre Dame, lining up primarily from a wing position or in the backfield, but with a lot of plays from in line. He's a very good blocker. He consistently showed play strength, technique, and the attitude to get after defenders like DBs and linebackers. He didn't have a lot of production in his college career because of a loaded depth chart that they had at the tight end position. Notre Dame has produced some good tight ends in the league, and they didn't really ask him to run a lot of routes in general. You know, they mostly had him working underneath, but he did flash good overall potential and good body control. He got real good hands, and you know, he can catch the football pretty good. We could even use him as a move tight end since he's comfortable splitting out wide or from the wing position, and he could also lead block in I form or maybe in weak and strong or far and near type formations. Number 2 on my list is O.J. Howard, who signed a 1-year deal with the Texans. He'll be a free agent. If y'all been rocking with me from the beginning of the show, y'all know I had O.J. Howard on my list when in the beginning of 2022 draft or free agency. Number 3 on my list is Dalton Schultz from the Dallas Cowboys. He's available, and he's a good tight end. I think he can pair well with Mike Gesicki as well. Irv Smith Jr., who played with Tua at Alabama. I think he currently plays for the Vikings. He'll be a good tight end as well that we could add. He's a little bit shorter, 6'2", like Ethan Carter's size, I believe, but he'll be a good tight end as well. And number 5 that I have on my list is a real interesting choice, and that's Tyree Jackson, who entered the draft as a quarterback. He got signed and cut by the Bills. Nobody believed that he could make it as a quarterback, so he converted to tight end. I think we should sign him to the practice squad regardless. Like, even if we would have signed O.J. Howard or Schultz or Smith, still sign Tyree Jackson to the practice squad immediately, because I think, you know, we could let him work with Embry, the tight end coach, and Darrell Bevel, the quarterback coach, and maybe run trick plays, with him, and maybe use him as a Jim Jensen type of tight end as well, so something to keep in mind. I didn't add Hayden Hurst to the list because I believe he's going to be re-signed by the Bengals, but if he don't, Hayden Hurst would also pair well with Gesicki, better than Durham Smythe. Add him to the list. Also, Robert Tonyan. If Green Bay don't re-sign him, I think he'll also pair well with Gesicki. If y'all got any others that y'all could think of that are free agents or that maybe we could try to trade for, let me know in the comment section. Till next time, signing off.